For a lot of individuals, maxing out the 401k plan seems like a great way to invest your money. You're going to be more comfortable during retirement, and the earlier that you do get started with this, the more compounding effect you're going to have. Now, of course, the contribution limits for 401ks differs greatly than it does from IRAs. In your 401k plan, you can actually put $23,000 away, which for a majority of us is a pretty substantial price tag if you're trying to max these things out. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a few things that you need to do before you're putting money into this 401k. Now, of course, if they do offer a company match where you work, you want to get that company match. And a lot of people go kind of both ways, whether paying off debt first or getting that company match with the free money. Me personally, I would get the company match and then focus on, of course, number one that we get into is paying off high interest debt. Regarding credit card debt, for a majority of credit cards, the average balance in the United States runs about $6,000 to $7,000, which is kind of crazy. And the average interest rate is over 21%. Where you look in comparison to your stock market averages, we're about 10%. So the money that you're carrying on a credit card, you are paying over twice as much as what you're going to see in refunds or returns out of that stock market per year, which again makes dollar for dollar sense, putting a lot more money into and paying down that debt versus investing that money. If you invest $100 into that 401k, you'll have $110 by the end of the year, but your $100 credit card balance will be around $123 at the end of the year. So again, net negative when it comes to investing versus putting in and paying down that credit card debt. Now, of course, this is only the basis. You could have credit cards that are much higher. You could have credit cards, that have a lot of additional fees. You have to know exactly what you're getting into. Now, of course, for a lot of individuals, balance transfers might make sense. Debt consolidation might make sense, giving you the ability to not only pay back the debt that you have borrowed, but paying it back at a much faster pace. Then you can get out of debt quicker. You're going to be investing much sooner. So definitely look at those options if you are carrying credit card debt. Second one we look at is building an emergency fund. What I see a lot of people do as a financial counselor is people start putting a lot of money into that 401k plan, not leaving anything for the emergency fund. All of a sudden something happens and they have to borrow money. They're going back to credit cards, they're going back to loans, they're going back to borrowing money to cover a unexpected expense because they didn't build up this emergency fund. That's why even thinking back to Dave Ramsey baby steps, building that emergency fund is priority, almost number one, especially with the basic emergency fund, because that is going to keep you from going right back to borrowing, making sure that you're going to be able to cover that debt. Now, again, really following the plan, save that $1,000 in an emergency fund, then focus on paying down that debt once the debt is gone. Then you get to that 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund, depending exactly where you work, your job, the market, a lot of different factors you can take into account, but you want to make sure that you're protected if you have a large medical expense, a home repair, if you lose your job, if anything happens. Now, of course, if a lot of people, and they do this, dip into that 401k for a bunch of things that are not retirement. Not only that is you can have a lot of subject to penalties, early withdrawal penalties, you can have a lot of taxes. There are things that you can actually negatively impact you from drawing money out of that 401k. Again, because you didn't properly plan, because you didn't properly budget, building that emergency fund is definitely the second step that you want to really focus on. Now, number three, this gets into an interesting part, is maxing out your Roth IRA. Now, we know when you're putting money into that 401k, you want your company's full match. If they're matching 4%, you're putting in 4%. If they're giving you 7%, you're putting in 7%. You always want to, at a very minimum, match exactly what the 401k provider or your company is going to go ahead and match. Short of that, any dollar above that should go into a Roth IRA. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. Number one being you're really diversifying where your money is. You're not keeping your nest egg all in that 401k. When you're putting money into that Roth IRA, there are a couple different rules, but you're having money that is somewhere else. And you also have the ability to invest it and diversify it versus everything being in that 401k. You can put it in stocks, you can put it in bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever you want to put that 401k into, or excuse me, that IRA into, you definitely can. And if you're interested in opening one, I have some links down to M1 Finance down below. You can definitely do it through their Robinhood as well. And if you like the content that I'm putting out, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. But again, once you do max or match that company 401k match, the rest of the money is going into a Roth IRA. Now, of course, Roth IRAs have a very, very low contribution limit. So once you do max out that Roth IRA, then it's really up to you what you want to do with it. A lot of people will go ahead and put more into that 401k. Some people will even put it into an investment account that is just a regular brokerage account. Again, that way you do have access to it if you do need it. Now, of course, if you're going through jobs, if you're leaving different places, of course, the 401k, you got to roll over from place to place. Some employers do not take the 401k rollovers, which means now you have a money in a bunch of different places, which for a lot of people can be frustrating. And I also know a lot of people that leave an old job, go to a new job, start their new 401k, everything is good, and they literally leave that money on the table at the old job. They don't move it, they don't roll it over, it's unmanaged. I've even seen cases where all of the money in the old 401k plan is held entirely in cash, meaning there is zero growth that we're seeing out of that 401k because when they left the company, they just left the money there as well. And the final one we get into, number 4, is saving for medium-term goals. Now, of course, this is a little bit different than your emergency fund, but this is really what you want to do before you retire. The 401ks, the IRAs are all retirement funds earmarked for retirement and only retirement. And of course, that is how you are going to treat the money. Looking at medium-term goals, this is buying a home, building up a college savings account, taking a dream vacation, and really living life on those medium-term goals, which are going to be the 3 to 5 years. You're not looking at the 5 years plus when it comes to those retirement accounts and investment accounts. It is really the savings and really having the ability to kind of map out what are your short-term, your medium-term, and your long-term goals. Long-term goals, of course, are probably earmarked for retirement, but what are the medium-term goals? What are the things that you need to be saving for today and money that you could possibly need today for the betterment of, again, the next 3 to 5 years, depending on what you want to do. There has to be a balance between these. And of course, there's going to be a lot of expenses between today and the time you retire. If you're 30, if you're 40, if you're 50, it might be putting a lot more money into that 401k. But overall, you really want the 401k as a set it and kind of forget it kind of mentality. 401k is meant to replace 80% of your pre-retirement income. So for numbers basics, let's just say you're making $100,000 a year. The 401k is looking to replace 80% of that. Now we know traditionally Social Security is meant to replace 40% of your income. So even if you did the split there where it's a 60-40, 60 with the retirement accounts, 40% is what you're getting from Social Security. Again, that is going to kind of make you whole. Now, what we see a majority of times is when people get into retirement, they have a ton of time on their hands, where if you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, then you retire. Now, literally, you have all of your days open, all of your days free. A lot of people do have hobbies. A lot of people like to go on vacation. And we find that a lot of people within the first couple years of retirement, until they really do get settled, do spend a significant amount of money within those first couple years because, again, they have a lot of time on their hands. So what is the general rule? Like we said, how much should you save? 15%. At least 15% of your income into an investment account, whether it is a combination of the 401k, an IRA, any combination where if you're matching 4% and then you're putting the other percentage in. And also, do not count the 4% as what your contribution is to hit that 15%. So again, if I have a company that's putting in 7.5, I'm putting in 7.5, boom, I'm at 15% automatically. Nope. You individually are looking to put in that 15%. And if you do, I promise you, with the extended amount of time when you're putting in that 15%, it is going to grow and it is going to grow exponentially for you, making a really, really big difference and a really big impact on where you're going to be set up for retirement. So guys, definitely some things that you want to think about before you start maxing that 401k out. Always look at the Roth option so everything is not in one bucket, and I'll catch you in the next video.